my dad always grinded into us that whatever goals you have in life, even if they're purely selfish, you just want to look out for yourself. If you put the team, the group, the unit, the family, and the community first, your odds of achieving those goals are going to increase exponentially. I mean, it's just, you can't do things by yourself to that level. You never will. And so if you put those things first, in order to do that, you have to be able to be vocal about it. You have to be able to say things. You have to be able to make that change in the best way you can. You have to accept accountability. And when I don't see people doing that, it just drives me nuts, especially if you're doing it and you're complaining. That just drives me nuts. So it came at an early age. And I would have to say that came from my father.
That's awesome. I'm excited for you to see this week's episode, but before we get to that, I have a message for you. If you're a parent of an elite athlete or a coach of a high-performing team and you're looking for some help or assistance with making them more mentally resilient, perform with more confidence, be more consistent, anything like that, then this is for you. I have an 8-week program all designed to address exactly that, to help your athlete be at their best on a more consistent basis and not get tripped up by those little voices in their head and getting down on themselves for mistakes, but performing like we know they can. So what I want you to do is don't delay, just grab a time on my calendar through this link, and let's set up a time to talk about your specific situation and how what I'm offering in my 8-week program can help. Okay. So it's brynndrescher.com/free consultation. So click this link, grab a time on my calendar. I look forward to talking to you. And now on to this week's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Mental Advantage Podcast. We are gifted today with an amazing guest, Mr. Johnathan Flowers. Couple of facts about him. One, he has a video on YouTube that has over 32 million views, okay? I'm trying to get to 32 views. I'm just kidding. I have more than 32, but 32 million, that's amazing. And so we're going to talk to him about that, but he's also a proud girl dad, also a boy dad, but also a girl dad. And he is just someone that loves to pour into athletes. How you doing today, Johnathan?
I'm doing really great. Thanks for having me here today.
Absolutely.
Oh
yeah, sorry to talk over you. I apologize. I had the privilege of being on a podcast last week with Johnathan, and we were just so in sync with what we were talking about with athletes. So I just knew I had to have him on my podcast. So Johnathan, I always want to start because I talk about athletes being like superheroes, right? And I don't know about you. Do you love superheroes? Are you a superhero fan like me?
I'm a huge geek. Marvel, DC, everything.
Okay. All right. Nice. And I love the origin story, right? And since you were a professional athlete or a high caliber athlete, let's talk about how you got started. What was your first sport? How was it introduced to you? Tell me a little bit about that journey.
I came from an athletic family. I had an older brother, I had some older cousins, my dad, my uncle. They've all been professional athletes. I have a great-great-grandfather who was one of the first Black athletes inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Nice. We have Olympic athletes in our family. So it was just around us. The first sport I was really into that I got introduced to, believe it or not, was baseball. You're a little kid, it's not real baseball. It's like T-ball and then they have like coach pitch and all that kind of stuff. And then you kind of gravitate. And I was actually pretty good. I didn't like the outfield. For some reason, it was super, super boring. Like you'd fall asleep out there and be looking at butterflies and things. And then from there, I just gravitated into everything you wanted to play. You just, hey, we want to play basketball, which you did around the neighborhood, and you went to play rec league. And then, I dabbled in soccer because we had it at school, but it was not a sport I wanted to do. Believe it or not, I actually played lacrosse too as well.
Oh.
Because I think our coach put us in that because it was like, it's not football season. This will keep you in shape and keep you out of trouble. So let's play lacrosse. And so we did that. And then it was always like football, lacrosse, basketball, baseball, that kind of thing. And then track.
Gotcha. Well, I'm also a track runner, and I know that most people are not huge fans of track because that's the once that person said, I saw a TikTok video that said, the reason I hate track is because it's the punishment for every other sport. Running, right?
It's funny because it's the truth. It's like go run sprints or go run a mile. It's either the conditioning portion or the punishment of every other sport.
Exactly. Speaking of that, since you come from the world of coaching, we'll get back to your football early origins. What do you think about that? that punishing piece, right? Like, because there's some schools of thought that say you're not supposed to negatively incentivize your athletes. What do you think about the whole thing of making people run or penalizing yourself if you don't hit a goal or a mark or an objective that you thought that you should, or the athlete or coach thinks that they should?
Well, it's weird because I come from two rules of thought there because I come both from a military background and athletic background. And in some cases, I get the whole idea of let me break things down so that you model and become the kind of athlete or kind of soldier or person or Marine that I want you to be because you have to execute a certain way. And if you don't, there are consequences. However, when it's youth sports, I have a real hard time with the whole punishment thing. Like what I would normally do is this. If you messed up, you're going to help clean up, like more than conditioning, you're going to help the coaches. You're going to help clean up things, put equipment away, do that kind of stuff because you're not paying attention or something's wrong.
Right.
If you continue to be a disciplinary problem rather than just give up on you, let's say you're a wide receiver. Next time I'm punishing you and the wide receiver. So you're starting past that. If you do it a third time, then the whole offense is going to get punished. If it gets to a fourth time, I'm like, dude, you obviously don't care. The whole team's getting punished. So I'm hoping that the team will manage you and monitor you themselves, kind of get you back in line. But as for an immediate, like just, hey, punishing you just for the heck of it, I'm sick and tired of dealing with you, I was never a fan of that.
Yeah.
Because kids, I don't care how bad you messed up. I know when I messed up. And the only time I think it's appropriate is when it's a disciplinary problem. Like you're speaking back, you're talking over the coach, you're fighting or arguing your teammates. Then it's a disciplinary problem. When it's about activity and accomplishment and mental errors, I'm not doing that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really important. I think a lot of coaches need to hear that because I think it is interesting that people think like kids make mistakes on purpose, right? And nobody's harder on themselves than a high caliber athlete. We don't want to mess up. We don't want to make mistakes. And so to punish us only further kind of does more damage, I think, than, than any good, but different when you're not paying attention. You're not locked in, you're late for practice every day, and those type of things, because then that's more of a, maybe we need to teach them some discipline, we need to teach them a little bit of accountability and that type of stuff. So I like your approach in that regard. So getting back to your career, when you discovered, you were playing multiple sports, like I said, everybody played whatever, right? I did soccer when I was a kid, I did track, I did whatever I could get my hands on, I did basketball. And then eventually you find that sport, right? So once you found your groove in football, what was it that you loved about the sport?
It was kind of the way, and honestly, it was a place where you can get away from the world. It was, there's things going on in the neighborhood, or sometimes there's family issues, dynamics, there's personal things in your life, there's things at school, there's all kinds of things happening. But out there, it was a bunch of kids. Like, obviously we were competitive and we would talk to each other and get in each other's grill a little bit, but we had the same goal. And like literally, like one of my favorite movies is Remember the Titans. Literally, like I knew kids that were white or Puerto Rican or black or Asian or whatever. And once we hit that football field, that crap didn't matter. It just didn't. We left that stuff off the field or out there in the neighborhood or whatever. It didn't matter. It just didn't. And I love that aspect of it. It was his own little dynamic. And then obviously there's an aggressive physical part that's fun. Yeah. Like you just get to run around and tackle and hit people. And you're a little kid. There's a reckless man. I'm doing this, and it's not serious yet. When you get older, it got a little serious. Then it was a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was the first position that you found yourself drawn to, and was that where you ultimately found was your zone of genius? Or tell me a little bit about that.
I believe it or not, my first position I was drawn to was being a quarterback. And there was a black quarterback that was, believe it or not, was the Steelers quarterback before Terry Bradshaw took the job, named Joe Gilliam. And that was the first time I saw a black guy in a quarterback position. And I thought, God, this is cool. He gets to touch the ball. He gets to control everything. This is great. Obviously, not to be disrespectful of where we are in history, but back then, coaches did not encourage black kids to be quarterbacks. That was not the case. If you were in all black neighborhood or all Hispanic neighborhood, of course you were quarterback because there was no other option. But when you got to high school, that position was always a white kid. Always. It was, for whatever reason, stereotype, we're not smart enough, leadership, we can't control emotion, whatever the reason was. They put that was not the case. And because you saw it in the pros, you saw it in college, you didn't see those people. So what happened is I was tall, I was fast, so he kept trying to make me a wide receiver, which I understand that idea in a coach's head. Like, he looks like that kind of kid that can
Right.
do that. But that was just not my flavor. I wasn't feeling it. And one time our quarterback threw an interception and I was running around on the other side of the field. I took off, ran back, cut this kid off, and just lit him up in front of our bench. And the coach said, you want to come play on the defense side of the ball? And I never saw the offense side of the ball again.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
I love those pivot moments, right? Like when something happens and all of a sudden it's like, I thought I was going on this path and then not. And then obviously addressing the historical context. I took a sociology class in college and I never realized, when you're a kid, you're not aware of these things. I never realized how commentators would talk about black players versus white players. And they would always talk about how they address the athleticism of the black athlete and the intelligence or the smarts of the white athlete. And so all of a sudden, once I recognized that, I was like, wow, that's so crazy. And I still look for it today. Like, how are they talking about, Cam Newton versus Tom Brady and things like that? I think it has gotten better, but I'm sure it's still there. I don't watch a ton of professional football. You probably be a little bit more versed in that. So I thank you for bringing that to people's awareness, where we need to do some changing around the way we think about people, because the position of quarterback has both skills, athleticism, and some of the best quarterbacks are the most athletic, but also that ability to have that field vision and make smart decisions. But that's every athlete on the field. It's not just athleticism. It is intelligence. It's both.
Yeah, I mean, I still hear it to this day. Like when people talk about Patrick Mahomes, I mean, Jimmy Johnson was the head coach of the Dolphins and the Cowboys, and coach at University of Miami. I was a total fan. And one time he was describing this. I think the greatest quarterback in the game right now is Patrick Mahomes. He can make all the throws. He's athletic. He's very mobile. He's very sharp. Not once did he say, "Oh my God, he's a great decision maker. He understands how to manage the game and control." He didn't say that. He completely talked about his abilities physically. And I know Jimmy's not like that, but that's the way he was speaking.
Yeah. So that's good for people to have that awareness. How let's change the way we're talking about our young athletes, because that message is going to, because representation matters. We see that Patrick Mahomes is one of the few black quarterbacks that's ever even made it to a Super Bowl. Had he won, he would have been the first one to win it twice. So that was a big deal. And it's very important that we recognize that there needs to be more exposure, more, awareness about how we can represent athletes differently. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation. Absolutely. So you found the defensive side. What position were you? I apologize, I don't know. Is it linebacker? Because that's what it sounds like. No?
No, I played safety.
Safety. Okay. Yes. The guy that lights up the receivers. Right. Okay. So you were in the middle, right? You're in the middle covering the flat. Yeah. Okay.
I'm in the middle of the field, or sometimes they roll you down. They do two of us in the back up there, like there's two. I call it a cover two because there's two safeties back there. Sometimes a cover three where I have the two corners outside of me, or they roll a safety over. There's multiple ways to do it, but you're basically the last line of defense. And you're the big guy who sees the biggest things, and the coverages shift based on what you're doing, what you say or call most times. You're the opposite of what the quarterback is on the other side of the field.
Hence the term safety. Look at you teaching me things. My brother played football and he was the corner on the defensive side, but I did not know why the safety was called the safety, but now it makes sense. You're the last line of defense. So yes, and you have to assist with all that. And some of those feats that corners, safeties, as well as wide receivers do when you're just like catching that ball with one hand or stopping him from catching the ball is pretty phenomenal. So when does it become, so you light somebody up in front of the bench, you're on the defensive side. What was your favorite high school moment in football?
Oh, easily. When I was a senior, our high school won state championship. And the way it was, there was a school, and it was a private school. It was all white school, and it was St. John's Academy, and they were just a powerhouse. They had money. They were very affluent. We'd see these kids in Pop Warner, or what we called youth and rec football at the time, and they had all the gear and everything. So they had been, like, for lack of a better word, beating the crap out of us on the football field since we were kids. So we get to high school, and I don't think we ever beat them until our senior year. Like we never beat them. They were always like, sometimes it was close games or rival games. And then we went into our senior year, and I was like, man, this can't happen anymore. So we got them in a weird way. We got them the very last game of the season, and we were already undefeated. And we didn't matter if we beat them or not. We were going to the playoffs. Didn't matter. Right. And the coach was going to rest the seniors and rest a bunch of us players and let a lot of underclassmen play. And we were like, no, you aren't. No way, coach. We're not ducking these guys. This is some of us our last chance to beat them.
Yeah.
We're not going to duck them. And so he reminded us that you guys realize that if you lose to these guys, you'll play them again next week in the first round of play. So we'll see them back to back. If you beat these guys, you won't see them. No, excuse me. Let me rephrase that. If we beat these guys, you'll see them again next week or 2 weeks from now in the first round. If you lose to them, we wouldn't see them until the championship game, which is like, so we could kind of avoid them in our trip to the champ by just losing. And we were like, no, we didn't care. We're not doing this. So we get out there, and literally, no joke. And my 3 closest friends growing up, my next door neighbor, Sean Gasway, played corner. Right across the street was Chris Easy. He was the other corner. And then Mike Borneo was next to his house, and Mike played strong safety. So there was 2 safeties and the 2 corners. So the 4 of us grew up together, just being friends.
Nice.
So we went in that game. They ran the opening kickoff back, so now it's 7-0. We're struggling a little bit to get a field goal. So we go in the locker room, it's 10-0. And you could just see the attitude of, oh, here we go again. They're better than us. We can't beat them, blah, blah, blah. We started heading toward the locker room, and the coaches are walking behind some of us, and some of the seniors, me being one of them, stopped and said, Coach, we got this. And I said, what? No, we got this. Like you said, when we lose, we won't see them to a championship game. Doesn't matter. There's nothing you can be able to tell us that we don't already know about what's going on out there. The seniors got this. And our coach was Coach Lester, and he's a former Marine Corps. So let him have it. We shut the locker room door, and we just went off. Like the leaders just went off, got in people's face, said, we're not doing this. This is not going to happen. We came back out the second half. Those guys didn't cross the 50. We beat them 24-10. They never crossed the 50.
Wow.
And I told people that to this day, not only did we win the championship that year, not only did we did that, you can never take those moments away from somebody. So I tell kids, if you get a moment like that in your life, even in your adult life, where you can just say, you did something, and through pure force of will, determination, and focus, you change the outcome of something.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is still the greatest moment I've ever had in sports.
Wow. The greatest moment. Didn't you play all the way up to the pros?
Yeah, that still was the greatest moment. I mean, I can tell you, like, the first time I put on an NFL uniform, that was an amazing feeling. It was a great, like, oh my God, this is awesome. First time I walked on to practice, it was, but by that time you were a grown person and the excitement was there.
Yeah.
But the excitement, what was to come, not what you've done.
Right.
You know? And this was just the excitement of, look what I did. Look what we did. Look what my friends and I did. I mean, I still talk to buddies that I went to high school with, and we still talk about that.
That's awesome.
To this day. And we're all grown with kids, some of us are grandfathers, and we still talk about that moment.
Okay. Now I feel like we have to talk about this because the video is all about a pep talk that you gave. And we had a funny moment on the podcast last week because I said that I believe that there is no, and I think maybe that's where we need to make the distinction, but nonetheless, I said that when you're going into a large competition, there should be no difference in the approach than it is a regular conversation. But the way that it was said to me was that there is no special speech that one makes going into the big game versus the other game because they want them to think this is business as usual. You apparently are now not only the $32 million pep talk man, but you started this in high school. So I want to know really quickly, minus any expletives that were shared, do you remember what you guys said in that locker room? And then
absolutely.
Okay, give me a little glimpse of it.
So we came in and basically, look, there's a bunch of us on this team that are seniors, and we've been dealing with these guys since we were kids. This is our last shot at it. And I'm letting them, like, if you're not going to go out there and give everything you got and do anything, don't leave this locker room. Because I'm telling you right now, you're not going to like what happens. You're not going to like how we handle this if you come out this room and you're not giving yourself your best effort. Just get that clear. Anybody got a problem with that? Every senior stood up. Anybody got a problem? Let's settle this right now. And it was pin drop quiet. And I said, don't come out this locker room. And a bunch like Sean Prather and JJ Thompson, these are big dudes. Like I was one of the little guys. And we're just like, don't come out this locker room unless you got your stuff together. Just don't. And we were just, and obviously we were being a little more explorative. and a little more yelling.
Yes, of course, of
A
course.
little more verbal about stuff. But they came out, the look on these guys' face wasn't we're scared of you. It was, dang, I've never seen these guys this upset.
Yeah.
We were not a team that was like that. We were very calm for the most part. And they had never seen us snap like that. And that was it. I mean, we just really got into it. It was very clear. And it's like, I distinctly remember yelling at one kid because he was trying to talk while we were talking. And I remember snapping and going, oof. And it was on.
It reminds me a little bit of the Billy Bean moment in Moneyball when he's like, you think this is funny that we lost? You think that, this is funny? This is fun for you?
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And I think everyone needs to recognize, anyone listening, about if you're a coach, if you're, giving your captains that type of accountability, that coach trusting the seniors and giving them that opportunity, knowing that if the coach came in and gave a speech, it would have been more of the same.
Yes.
But hearing it from those seniors, hearing it from their peers, and knowing that they're like, because there's something about, they say that women bond before battle, men bond in battle.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's 100% true, because I don't want to stereotype, but I think that it, obviously there's evidence that shows that your team responded to the fact that we're not going to let our brothers down. Like, we're going in there and we know they're serious. Look, we can see the look in their eye, and it's different when their teammates say it versus when their coach says it. So kudos to you for having that sense of leadership already and showing what kind of athlete you were going to be throughout the rest of your career. How many more pep talks did you give on the way up to the accidental, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, $32 million viral video? 32 million views, sorry.
Honestly, I don't think we said anything the rest of the playoffs, because after we beat them.
No, I mean throughout your career. Before you became a coach, any other moments like that?
Oh, yeah. Man. I mean, at San Jose State, there were times when we were like, you knew you weren't going to beat this team. Like, this team is a Division I powerhouse someplace.
Right.
It's really funny. We'd never beaten in the history of San Jose State until 2 years ago, 2019. We never beat an SEC opponent. Like, we beat LSU, Auburn, those guys down there. Those guys. We never beat them.
Yeah.
And I remember going into a game one time, and we were playing an SEC opponent. It was a preseason game. It wasn't part of our regular schedule, but it was a money game. Like, they give you money to come play us, and we use it for television rights and all that kind of stuff, and it goes into the athletic department. And I've always been very honest with myself, like, okay, coach, this is a money game. You don't need this rah-rah speech right now. We got this.
Right.
We have no illusions about what's going to happen. But we weren't getting handled per se, but you could see guys were just going through the motion out here. And I snapped in the huddle one time. I said, dude, you need to step up your game. Like, this is going to get somebody hurt. Like, it's like, you're not playing your best, you get your brother hurt. But that's cool. Get the heck out of this huddle. And we were walking back to the locker room, and I remember somebody said something that got just out of earshot. And I don't remember the whole thing, but it was something like, I don't know why we bother playing these kind of games. This is just practice to them. So coach should pull the starter so we don't get hurt. And I remember stopping, turning around, and saying, "What did you just say?" And that, because we're on TV. I mean, let's be real here. You have an opportunity. People in this team have an opportunity to play in the NFL or whatever. Or this is their last shot at football for the rest of their life.
Right.
And you're going to say something like that out loud? I don't even care if everybody felt the same way you meant it. You shouldn't say it. And I snapped and I went off in the halftime about that. So those kind of moments have happened plenty of times.
Yeah. So where do you feel like that came from, that awareness of like the mental game, or at least like, taking advantage of these opportunities for you? I understand it was a collective senior effort in the moment in high school, but for you, where do you feel like you developed this idea, like, I'm just different? When did you start to be aware of that, or who introduced you to it? That type of stuff.
I think I got it from my dad, and I started being aware of it like in middle school. I didn't like bullies, so when someone would say something, I was the guy that would just sit there and watch, like you see in the coming of age movies where everybody kind of watches while the bully gets on the kid and somebody stands. I was the kid that would say something.
Yeah.
Like, and even to my boys, like, dude, why are you picking on this dude for it? And like, it's not even, it is my business because he lives in our neighborhood. That's not how this works. That's not the way it is. And my dad always grinded into us that whatever goals you have in life, even if they're purely selfish, you just want to look out for yourself. If you put the team, the group, the unit, the family, and the community first, your odds of achieving those goals are going to increase exponentially. I mean, it's just, you can't do things by yourself to that level. You never will. And so if you put those things first, but in order to do that, you have to be able to be vocal about it. You have to be able to say things. You have to be able to make that change in the best way you can. You have to accept accountability. And when I don't see people doing that, it just drives me nuts, especially if you're doing it and you're complaining. That just drives me nuts. So it came at an early age. And I would have to say it came from my father.
That's awesome. As you navigated the different pivot points of your career, what was your pinnacle moment in the NFL, or when did you realize you were done? Whichever one feels the best for you.
I can tell you exactly when it happened. I was coming off of an injury, and we were in a scrimmage, and I got really injured the week after. So that really that did it. But I was in the scrimmage, and we had this little a tailback named Jay Rellan, and Jay was really fast, like just a fast kid. If you missed him, he was gone. There was no touching him. And he was got replaced by Napoleon Kaufman.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we were doing a scrimmage drill, and we had this one linebacker, some Mullencow. And then at this time, Dana Stubblefield had come over from the 49ers, and he was a D tackle. And Jay did, like, people who know football know what I'm talking about. There was a counter play, and the guard slipped in, and Dana slipped past the guard in the center. And the linebacker came in. I'm coming at this kid. And I was like, oh, I got this kid. I'm going to make the tackle. Dana and the linebacker hit him. It's like simultaneously. And it was the first time in my life I was watching football. I'm there. Someone gets hit. And I went, ooh, dude, are you okay? Not like I was excited, but it was so loud and so powerful that I was like, whoa, dude, are you okay? Like, and I was like, trainer, come check on this kid. Like, and that's when I went, wow, this is really violent. Like,
yeah.
Like mortality had kind of clicked in. And maybe it's because I had injuries at the time.
Yeah.
I was starting to have a family. There was things that were more important than just me playing. And I don't know, but that was the pivotal moment for me. And then a couple of years after that, I was trying to play in NFL Europe for a while. And I remember I got done with that, and then I was trying some semi-pro football. And my daughter Jordan was just born, and I went to go put her in the bassinet, and I didn't want to drop her, but my arm kind of seized up and my neck seized up, and I went, whoa! And I was trying to call her mom to come get her out of my arms, but Jordan was sleeping, and I didn't want to wake her up. So I was whispering, finally yelled, woke Jordan up. Her mom came and got her out of my arm right as she was about to slide. She would have flipped over and laid her face first.
Wow.
I don't know if it would have hurt her or not because it was a blanket. And
right.
It scared me. But it scared me because I partially tweaked my neck and fractured it. And I didn't know. And it numbed my whole arm up. And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a longer life ahead of me than this moment.
I had Greg Camarillo from the Miami Dolphins. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, on my podcast. And he talked a little bit about the situation with the NFL and kind of like that whole thing about what you're physically demanding on your body, and that, and how football doesn't really prepare you for those things. Like, the NFL isn't really talking about that so much. And I was also watching, what's that? Last Chance University football. Yeah. And I remember I heard the coach say, I need you guys to be really violent out there. I need it to be like, like the way that they talk to the players. And it's all about hyping up that violence, hyping up that physicality of the game, but like saying it in a way that's almost like, whoa. So when you look at that, where do you feel there's a place for that kind of talk, and also how that affects a player body, in mind after they're kind of leaving the sport, or how does that serve them, or what would you say should be different, if anything?
So I have to preface this with two things. One is I'm a former combat veteran, so I understand what real violence is, like lethal and deadly violence. I know what that is, and I understand that mentality. And we didn't get taught to like that for missions. Nobody needed to yell at you about how you're going to kill this person and do stuff like that. That was stupid. Yeah. Because we knew it was going to happen in a few hours or a few days, and it could happen. Right. So the flip side is, I don't think there's ever a need for a coach to reference mortal, violent danger when he's giving his pre-speeches. When he's talking about, it's okay to hype you up. It's okay to touch on your emotions. And you have to know the players you're talking to, where they're coming from. But at the same time, some kids, like, I didn't need the pregame rah-rah speech. I personally give them. Yeah. I personally didn't need it. I could put my Walkman on and I was for like, wow, I just dated myself. My
He
headset's
said a Walkman, y'all.
I just
We'll
put my
reference
headset.
in the show notes what a Walkman is. I'm just kidding. I'm with you,
Yeah,
John.
it's so funny, but I used to put those on my head, listen to my music, and I was good. I didn't even
Yeah.
say anything. In fact, coach, don't talk to me right now. I'm focused. I'm dialing in. But I do know that some people need you to touch that emotional state so they
Mm-hmm.
can let go. They basically, I'm not Billy the dad or Billy's mom or Billy's whatever. I'm not this dad at home or person or this. I'm this person, football player right now, and this is my job. And my job is really
Mm.
physical. And if I'm not physical enough, I'm either let someone else get hurt or I might get hurt. So I understand. So you have to kind of push that button.
No, I appreciate that. I think it's important. I like what you said, touching on the emotional piece, but not having to necessarily reference violence. And then
Exactly.
we've already brought race in. So, of course, I want to talk about the implications of training a sport that is full of men of color, not quite to the extent of the NBA, but pretty, still, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
predominantly or if it's pretty even. I don't know the
It's
demographics.
it's about 70%.
70%, right. So we're
Yeah.
talking about largely still men of color, right?
Hmm.
And then you're teaching them, which they are now being conditioned and also treated and viewed by society as such, as these violent people. How do you turn that off the field? Or what did you do to be able to turn it off? Or did you find there to be sometimes it was difficult?
It's really funny because you don't turn off the competitiveness, like you just don't. I mean, like
Yeah.
my kids and I, when we play Uno or we play Jenga or anything, we have rules. Like if we do something competitive, because my kids were very competitive,
Yeah.
um, we were like, we basically said, look, there's no titles here. I'm not your dad. I'm not your, it's not mom's. This is us playing a game. So you can cab at it. Then the game's over. We're back to normal.
Right.
So and let me tell you this: my daughter and her mom, and I dated, and my ex girlfriend, like they were good winners. Trust me, they let you know when they won.
Yeah.
But as far as turning off stuff when you leave the field, it's you just really have to be. It kind of goes back to how you're raised and being around people and the society you're in. We were able to realize that this is what you did. It's not who you were. You
Mm.
come home, I'm still John and Shirley Flowers as a son. I've got older brothers and sisters. I'm their little brother. When you get older, when you come off the field, there's kids looking at you, people looking at you, fans that are talking to you. And I'm not thinking I'm in the grocery store, I'm running down the street and just tackle somebody. That just doesn't occur to me. But
Yeah.
you learn to tailor it. Like, how can I get my competitive energy out without having it be a physical thing?
Okay. And you mentioned it. This is not who you are. This is what you do. And a lot
Yeah.
of athletes don't necessarily have that, but it's good that you have that awareness, right? Because a lot of athletes do struggle with that. And we
Mm-hmm.
see, particularly in football, men having violent incidences off the field, maybe
Oh yeah.
because they are struggling with that. Did you see that with your teammates, and what kind of support did you offer, or what did you feel like the team or the NFL could have offered more?
I definitely think that there's a TV show called Ted Lasso where there's a counselor. They brought in a counselor on the team I think we mentioned that the last podcast. I think the teams need to do more of that. Having a counselor, having a mental health professional that's working with it, understands, like, I know that I'm getting the physical information from the team doctors and the medical professionals there, but there's also a mental person talking about that, so they're working in conjunction. I think they need to do a better job of that.
Yeah.
There's just days where like I laugh when people's like watch like these behind the scene documentaries like Hard Knocks or Spend the Day with the Dallas Cowboys or, like you said, Last Chance U, and people
Yeah.
go, oh my God, it's all these fights at training camp. Yeah, every day. Like there was like you got
Wow.
very hyped up physical people fighting for a job. It's something very important they've been working on. Sometimes they were 6 years old, and someone's pushing and shoving you, and you're just having a bad day, or you just got in an argument with your girlfriend or your wife, or your mom is sick, and then you're out there trying to play, and you're an edge. Sometimes that perfect storm just hit. I'm having a bad day. I don't feel well. I'm sore. I'm afraid of losing my job, so I'm going to pay through the pain and tough it out. I'm having problems at home, off the field, with my kids, or someone's sick, whatever, financial difficulties, and then that's going to boil up. It's just going to
Mm.
work. So I think having a mental professional, a counselor around, you can call them an assistant coach or a mental coach, whatever takes the stigma off to make them feel better.
Yeah.
having someone having access to that would be great.
I love what you said in the sense of, I mean, everything was good. Particularly what struck me was this idea that I think we need to drive home, which is let's think about ourselves when we have a bad day and we blow
Yeah.
up on our job. Let's think about with all the stressors we have going on outside of the job or outside of the field or whatever it is that we're dealing with, that comes to bear in lots of situations where all of a sudden I'm more upset about something at work that isn't really what I need to be upset about. So
Exactly.
and then you add on that football has this physicality component where you're, like you said, the guy hits you harder and you're like, yo, you don't got to hit me that hard in practice or something like that. And it's just, like
Yeah.
you said, a trigger, perfect storm. So thank you for that awareness. I think a lot of people need to hear that. And I had this situation with Chad Wheeler, and I don't know if you remember, but he was a member of the Seattle Seahawks, and I did a video about it because I was like, everyone always focuses on the victim or the crime and makes them criminal, right? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also a component where this guy needs help. And
Mm-hmm.
people, of course, dragged me, and it was, oh, do you know she was, black and this? And I was like, I understand all of that. You can be held accountable for your actions and still need mental health help. And a lot of people just think it's an either or zero sum game. And I want to get us to a place where we recognize it's an and conversation, not an or conversation. Because
Agreed.
no mentally healthy person chokes someone within an inch of their life. No
Yeah.
mentally healthy person makes themselves a meal next to an unconscious individual. No mentally healthy person does that. And I think people don't ever have compassion in those situations. It's just like, well, I would never do that. Now that's just not what men do. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, I hate when people say I would never do something because I had a really good coach tell me something one time, and he was not a football coach, but he was a life
Mm-hmm.
coach. And he just said, never say never when someone is hurt enough, scared enough, angry enough, upset enough, or 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 mainly frightened,
Yeah.
or is impaired by something else like alcohol or drugs. Never say never, no matter who that person is. You know?
Yeah. No, that's powerful. I think that's really important. And it is that compassion and empathy, and not empathy like you're excusing something. You can have empathy and still say, let's hold this person accountable. And there needs to be something else because eventually, as I was saying in the video, that person will get out of jail. And then you will have still a person who has not possibly dealt with their trauma and could be a reoffender.
Yeah.
And that is where we lack compassion. I think it's time to talk about your pep talk, okay? I want to know, obviously, many of you may be like, huh, his voice sounds familiar, or you may think, I don't know, I feel like I've heard about this. And maybe you didn't see it because I know some people just listen to it, but it has 32 million views. Tell us the story behind you picking this particular game or occasion, and then you can tell me the story about how it accidentally emptied it up on YouTube. But I'm more interested in why this game, why now with this lovely, thing that you architected for this moment.
Well, it was we were already undefeated at the time for this school. It's a school, Leland High School out here in the Bay Area in California, Alabama Valley. And some of these kids on this team, I had known them, and they had played with my son since they were in Pop Warner. So we were undefeated, and I was having a really tough week. My dad had passed away from cancer prior to that.
Mm.
And I was just, the team knew. There was kids on the team, specifically one kid, Vinny Giannetti, his family, Lance Giannetti, that coaches both him and his brother Lance. And it's their parents, Lance Sr. and his wife Dodie, are like family. And Vinny could just tell something was off. I was a little quieter. I was not hearing people. I was asking people, I'm sorry, man, what'd you say? I was doing that. And my dad had never seen me coach. He had never seen me coach ever. So he was going to fly out to watch me coach for the first time. And he had passed away the weekend before that. And I was just not feeling it. I was having a really tough time. I was at the house, and I happened to have The Last of the Mohicans on TV, and it was just playing. And I was looking for things to inspire me or get me back in this, like whatever. And so part of that speech is the Rangers Creed from the U.S. military. So I was thinking about things that Rangers say, heard from my instructors, and I was trying to find things. I was literally looking at, no joke, looking at this old Motorola flip phone. I was like, God, universe, please give me a sign that something's going to get better. Like, what do I need here? And coincidentally, Vinny called me on that phone, like right after I said, like literally 2 minutes after I said that out loud.
Wow.
I got the phone with Vinny. Vinny asked me, like, are we okay? Coach, what are we doing wrong? Do your captains need to say anything? Hey, what's happening, Coach? And I kind of told Vinny what was going on. He goes, and I was not going to finish the season. I was going to let the coaches finish it and go to the playoffs or whatever. I was going to walk away.
Yeah.
And Vinny was like, no, Coach, we got you. Just you're there. We need you. Your presence is all we need. We got you. And he goes, and Vinny literally said, I opened the door. And I opened my front door, and there was some of the teams out there, and he was calling me from the street.
Oh, wow.
So we sat and talked. I went back in the house, and The Last Two Mohicans was still playing, which is the music from the video. And I just started writing. I just started writing notes down. I didn't write the speech out. I just wrote notes, like things that was important to me, like bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch that speech and I look at the thing, I'm not reading the speech. I'm looking at bullet points. Real quick to remind myself how this is going to go. And then after that, everything in that speech was completely organic. I hadn't rehearsed it. I hadn't read the thing out loud. I just wanted to talk, and the music kept me focused because I picked that music because I love that movie, and I love the scene, and it just got me going. It reminded me why I was doing it. And so I just, that moment for that was just, it wasn't about winning the championship. It was just, guys, we're in this together. I got you. And I'm sorry about this week, and I wanted you to know what was going on. And one of the players, Taylor Hubbard, his dad, Kevin Hubbard, was filming it apparently. I didn't know he was filming it. And then a bunch of kids saw it, and then I think another kid named John Rule put it up on YouTube. And football season ended. I was coaching lacrosse that day, and people kept stopping me and saying, "Oh my God, Coach, that was incredible! What are we talking about?" I got stopped in Safeway, and some lady said, "Oh my God, I saw that speech. It was around." I go, "Huh?" And I'm like, and it took me it was literally a whole week before I realized. Someone said, "You know what we're talking about, Coach?" They go, "Coach, really?" And they said, "Come here." And we went to a classroom. The kid pulled it up and said, "You're on YouTube." And I'm like, "Who put this up?" And then they told me what happened, and it spiraled from there.
Wow. Okay, I have to know, was it the scene where Daniel Day-Lewis says, "I will find you"? Was it that part when they were running?
It was the scene when he's Ankus is going after the younger girl, and the Mogwai is leading the Iroquois up that thing on the cliff, and then Hawkeye and his Chindacook, I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
Because the father are running to get up there to stay and get the music going. And they're getting there and they're shooting and they're fighting and tomahawking and everything. I was like, you're not getting away from us.
That's right.
That's how it felt.
It is such a powerful scene. I just got goosebumps just thinking about how powerful it is. So, and I don't know if the listeners know or the people watching this on YouTube know, but that's why they score movies. If you watch the scene without the music, you don't have the same emotional attachment. You don't have, you've got, and for those of you that don't know, they're not on set. They are watching the scene and then they are playing it to record the score. And so it's really a brilliant process. So the fact that you had music playing only adds to the emotion. And then hearing the story behind the speech, it's almost better than hearing the speech. Not that the speech doesn't have amazing content, because it does. But it's this camaraderie, this brotherhood, which is what you were talking about, because it was more like they were rescuing you. In that moment, absolutely. They were rescuing you. And I think that's absolutely beautiful.
Well, it's really funny. My son, David, he's no longer with us, but he was in the military, in the Army, in the criminal investigation division. A bunch of guys, when he was in training, a bunch of guys were listening to this speech in the team room. And he walks up and goes, they go, "Oh my God, you love this guy." And Dave walks up and goes, "Yeah, that's my dad." And they were like, "What?" And so there was just those kind of things. And I've gotten emails like that or texts. I literally on YouTube, I get a text or a comment or an email at least once a week from somebody.
Wow.
I went through a divorce. I was watching this. Thank you, man. Oh, when are you going to make more speeches? Oh my God, I played this for my team. There's an actual group in Utah called Addicted to Athletes. And they or helping athletes and people. They don't necessarily just help athletes, but they want you to say you're an athlete against your addiction. Your opponent is your addiction. And they use that speech as the rallying cry for their meetings. Like, who's going to be a champion today against their addiction? And I was on one of their podcasts, and she had reached out to me weeks after she reached out. My son saw it and said, "Dad, these people are trying to reach you." And so I contacted them. I got on the podcast and talked to them about where the speech came from and everything. And I said, anytime you want me to come out and talk to people, let me know. It's a great thing as a vehicle to get to know other people. Like that's how I met Jason. Jason and Jim on the 40 Athletes podcast. I met them because they saw the speech.
Wow. So many great opportunities have come as a result of this. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this was all born out of loss, and that it's almost as if your dad was letting you know, like, there's a mission for you here. Like, you know, because you said it flowed out of you. Like, you were just writing notes, but then as you were speaking it, I imagine, because this has happened to me as a speaker, that you felt like it was speaking you, if that makes sense, like you were being spoken through. Did you have a moment like that when you were doing it, even though you didn't know you were being filmed and all that?
It was funny because, I mean, there was things that came out of my mouth when I rewatched it, and I went, I don't remember saying that, or why did I say that? Or, I mean, and like people ask me all the time, like, what is your favorite part of that speech? Because like I said, some of it I took from the Army Ranger Creed, and I've actually broken it down because some people said, I've had people say, and I hope people who are listening go, oh, he just copied the whole creed. I go, no, I didn't. I literally went through word for word and gone back to that speech. There was less than a third of this the Army Ranger Creed. The rest of it. Wow. Yeah, I just took moments and I put notes down. But my favorite part of that speech for myself is when I said, and it just timed out with the music exactly right. It wasn't planned. Where I said, history will remember me. I will not worry about it being kind. I will write my own praises. And that was, and that's the line I always tell people I love from that speech more than anything else.
Yeah, that is the moment that I also loved when you said that, and not being judged, you know, just like making up your own story, not worrying about what other people think. And I just thought it was really funny when we were on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, I don't believe you needed to have a special speech before. And you're like, funny story, I have a 32 million view video that says otherwise. That's not how he said it. But it was like, oh, shoot. Like, I had no idea. But I think that's better, right? That I didn't come in like, oh, this is the 32 million view. Because I think that's when the magic happens, and you get a different perspective and you get to see something different. And I think those young men and everyone in that room and everyone, like you said, that's ever been touched by that video, it can feel, it's palpable. What you were experiencing transmutes through that screen, comes through that speech. It's not just the words. And that's why I said, I like the content of the speech, but the power and the delivery of it is what allows it to emit out. And so if you're like, what is this video? You keep talking about it. It's I Am a Champion, Johnathan Flowers. Just Google it. YouTube it, and you will find it, and you can become the 33 million viewer, okay? You may become a regular frequent flyer of that video, which is why it has so many views, because people use it all the time. He's obviously more than a one speech guy. You've mentioned, obviously, your service, your NFL career, and your coaching. Are you still coaching, or what is your main thing that you're focusing on now?
Well, my actual career is I actually do marketing.
Okay.
I classify myself as an integrated marketer. Corporations, businesses, and the small community. And obviously I live in Silicon Valley in Northern California, so working in the tech industry is kind of what you have to do. It's by association. And integrated marketing, for those who don't know, is like you have three big buckets, and you have like messaging, branding, value proposition, PR, and communications. Then you have like web, the digital, and demand gen, which obviously helps draw in sales and communicates to people and allows you to interact with your customers more directly. And then the third bucket is marketing operations, which helps you capture the data and the reporting and analytics that you need to make adjustments on what your company does, whether it's the product or the messaging they send out, and then creative services, which helps create content for it. And that could be an agency or internal. But what integrated marketing does is I take those three buckets, which is like your offense, your defense, your special teams, your football, and I make sure they're working together. So things are going out, that are all touch points are making connected, the brand's the same, you get some information, like the customer experience you get and I get on our phone, on our desktop is similar, it's easy. and we can help talk to them. So that's what I do for a main living. But on the side, I do a lot of life coaching and private coaching with either kids or adults. And I tailor it to what they can afford or what they do, what they want to do. And especially like young kids, I like mentoring them. I do a lot of charity work for the NFL, whether it's golf tournaments. There's a camp that we have here annually. We didn't get to have it last year because of COVID, but it's called Angel Tree Football Camps, and they're in Redwood City. And all the kids that come to this camp, it's free for them to come. And we get people to volunteer food or equipment, and it has a bunch of and the NFL alumni come there. We all coach the kids, and then at the end we have a barbecue and sit down with them and let them talk and have questions and autographs, whatever they want to do. But every kid that's there either has a patriarch, a matriarch, a mom, and dad, or a leader person in their family, whatever that may be in their family dynamic, is incarcerated. So they may be in a foster care system. So it's very humbling to be around these kids, and you can see that dynamic. Like some kids, you can't even talk to them for 10 minutes and have them stay focused. And some kids are just like, oh my God, whatever you say, and they're listening to every little thing, you know? Yeah. And not to bring race into it, I do tell people sometimes, but actually I am bringing race into it, my apologies. I tell people all the time, like I've had people say, I have difficulty talking to kids of color sometimes. They don't want to listen, they get defensive, it's like this. And I go, well, dude, let me back you up for here a second. Depending on how you talk to them, are you helping them and to asking questions like, hey, Johnny, what's going on here? Look, I know you can take this kid, but I want your football to be this way as opposed to, you're not listening, you're being stupid. We hear negative comments about ourselves our entire life. On TV, radio, and ads, walking around, just in general. The last thing you want to do, what I want to hear is when I'm in a place where I'm supposed to be escaping and I'm focusing on my friends, you're embarrassing me and putting me down, not intentionally sometimes, in front of my peers and my boys and my buddies I live in the community and neighborhood with. Right. So what do you think he's going to do? Go talk to your wife like that, see how she responds. Right. Go into a business office and say that and see how a person responds. Why would you think it's going to be different for a young kid who hasn't even matured enough to learn to control his emotions? It's illogical. It has nothing to do with race. It's context. Yeah. And I just wouldn't, if there's coaches listening, keep that in your head, man. It's like you start off with something, acknowledging that person, you're fast, you're this, and then say, this is going to help you be better with this, as opposed to commenting on them as a person, their intelligence, or their attitude, and then try to get them to listen to you. Nobody's going to do that. Yeah. Nobody's going to. I mean, when on this planet have you ever seen anybody walk up and say, Brand, I hate the fact you do this, you're pretty stupid, you're pretty dumb, this is why you need to listen to me. Oh, that's going to go over real well. So.
Absolutely. I think my next question was going to be what you kind of already touched on with the marketing aspect. I was going to say, what are the skills that you took from football and being a service member and that you now apply in the various different roles of your life? And because I think a lot of athletes don't recognize that what they got from football or from their sport and what they get from any other major thing like combat or, even being in service, how that can translate into other areas of their life.
Well, I think every ex-athlete needs to realize this, and this is something I've told my sons and my daughter all the time, is if you can memorize a playbook and you can do film and video study to improve your game, you can read a textbook, you can read a manual, you can practice something to improve your rating life at a job or work. So what I got from all that was work ethic. If you do something enough, you're going to get better. If you do something enough, you're going to be more successful. That's training, eating right, going to practice on time, studying, filming, same thing. Get up at work, take care of yourself, listen to your boss, talk to your teammates, be more collaborative. Those are the whole things. And you don't break the hull and say, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
Same thing in work. You can't go, I don't like what the boss is saying, I'm going to just do it my way. That's not how this works.
Right.
And it's weird because between the military and professional sports, those are high, ultra team environments. And you get to corporate America and you realize it ain't like that.
Yeah.
Corporate America is not a team environment. People always say that stuff, but it's really not.
A lot of cutthroatness, yeah.
Yeah, and I realize I told people, this comes from the top down. You see a great team culture, look at the boss. You see a crappy team culture, look at the boss. It's that simple.
All about that personal responsibility. And I think that's important. And the next thing I was going to ask you was, what message do you have? And you gave it already about treating athletes with respect and recognizing what they're dealing with. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, and you should know if you're an ex-athlete or a, athlete that transitioned into another place, because I know sometimes you don't ever really lose the identity of an athlete.
Yeah.
That athletes get into sport as an escape for usually other things that are happening in their lives, particularly the big sports, basketball, football. Those type of sports are typically, it was the only thing running that wasn't running on the corners or running with the bad boys of the neighborhood or
Yep.
whatever the case was. So what advice do you have for coaches, since you've been in that space and you've played as a player and a coach, and you're mentoring people, even, people outside of the world of sports? But what advice do you have for coaches, or do you feel like coaches make a big mistake that they could do a better job of, besides communicating, obviously, cross-culturally?
I think the biggest advice I would give coaches is always remember that that it's a corny phrase, but it always fits. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I know you want to get in the bowl game. I know you want to win. I know you want to get a job. I know you want to coach at this level. I know you might get fired. I mean, I understand all that. I get that. But at the end of the day, if you want me to listen to you and sell out for you and sacrifice for you, I got to know you actually care about me.
Yeah,
If not, then why am I listening to you? So
absolutely.
it's just simple as that. They don't care how much you know, how experienced you are. They know how much you care. They just don't.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important to recognize that those are the coaches that get the most out of their players. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
walk through they'll run through a brick wall, they always say, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want that guy to run through a brick wall for you, he needs to know you got his back. She needs to
Yep.
know that you get her, that you care. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
coaches get caught up in this, it's my team, it's my regime, it's my way. And like you said, looking at that leadership, right? Like, that leader, it's all about, take that responsibility. Like, this is our team and I'm helping guide us in this journey, but it's a collective effort. And we also have to kind of let go of that, it's about me thing, right? Like,
Oh,
this is
yeah,
a
absolutely.
reflection of me.
And I think that would be the second thing I think that gets the most value out of sports. The mental thing is if your kid doesn't get anything else out of team sport besides, in my mind, giving them distractions, keep them out of trouble and keep them focused on things, keep them busy. There's too many things kids can get into. That's not even being a bad neighbor. It's just there's the opioid epidemic, there's being online, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of bullying, all kinds of just keeping them out of their space. But the number one thing I think your kids can learn is it's not just about me. That's
Yep.
going to make them a better father or mother or a better family member or a better community person. It's going to make them even more susceptible to be maybe public service, something like that, because it's not just about them.
Yeah.
I think that I don't mean to segue too much, but one of the things I can't stand is people who post something on social media and go off on this political tirade. And I go, okay, so what is your answer? You're not voting. You didn't vote. Or if
Right.
you did vote, good for you. Or you don't. Are you going to your councilman? Did you look at the proposition of the bill? Did you read it? Did you go and petition for it? Did you go
Right.
lobby for it? Are you walking the neighborhood canvassing, having conversations with your neighbors to see how, not
Mhm.
telling them what they think because you agree with this. No, find out what they think so you educate yourself more about what's happening.
Right.
That just drives me nuts. Like you have this Albert Einstein authoritarian because you saw one link on a post or a blog, and you think you know everything. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah, it is a lot of snap judgments and people. And I think, when we know better, we do better, or when we know different, we do different. But most people just aren't aware. And that self awareness is so key. And, like, it's easy to be that armchair quarterback on Sunday, to really
Mm-hmm.
think about, like, oh, just everybody's opinions about, like, Simone Biles, obviously, and all the different things. So, two last questions before we get to the rapid fire questions, because I want to be respectful of your time, of course.
No problem.
uh mental what do you think is the hardest part about the mental side of a sport? What do you think is the hardest part about that for the athlete, to navigate?
I think it's learning how to stay mentally focused and control your emotions. That's the hardest part there because when you're down or you're having a bad day or you're upset or you're just angry or you're just fired up and you're not thinking, it's the epitome of what trash talking is for. I mean, if I'm talking to a guy and he's distracted emotionally and he can't focus mentally, I'll do it all day.
Yeah.
I'll do it all day. But I've also know that's happens to me. I've had
Yeah.
guys talk to me and I just, lost focus and I've snapped, and I've gotten into that with them instead of thinking about what I'm going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
When that
I would say
emotion
that.
goes up, your
Yeah,
intelligence goes down, and you don't have all of the capacity that you had before that moment. And that's why the teams do that. They know if they talk trash to you, you're going to be a little bit off. So we already talked about it on the 4D Athletes podcast, but I love that moment with Kobe and Matt Barnes because it's
yeah,
such a good example of just being locked in because you can be whoever you want to be in the face of me, but I always have a choice of how I respond. And if we can teach athletes to be
exactly.
better responders, much better outcomes. And last question I have for you, speaking of that, when we are getting our emotions and getting the best of us and struggling with the different sides of sport and seeing what happened with all the different athletes and how mental health is coming to the forefront, what do you say to people that have these athletes, they don't really they don't get it, they're soft, they're complaining, they get paid all this money? What do you think about that, since you've been on that professional side and high level side, and you hear this? What's your response to that?
I always look at it this way: unless you're going to physically take care of me and my family and me physically, my well-being, it's none of your business. There's I know CEO, I know C-level managers in this world that have done nothing, but they got stock options. They make six-figure living $1 million homes and stuff. They didn't make the world a better place. They didn't improve anything. And like, where were you when I was sleeping in my car trying to make it through college? Where were you when my family was
Mm,
on the street and I lucked out? What about my mom who's sick? If you're not going to take care of this stuff, don't worry about how much money I make. When I'm
right.
on that court of that field, you have the right to criticize my performance as a fan paying a ticket or supporting that team and that organization. No problem with that. The moment I walk out that locker room, it's none of your business. You're not part of
Yes.
my life. You're not contributing to me. It's none of your business. Unless I'm doing something to hurt people or illegal, it's none of your business.
That is such a good point. Exactly. And yeah, because I mean, it's so easy to criticize people, and I may disagree that they even have a right to criticize your performance. And of course, you're right to an opinion, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to say that. I'm like, my thing is like, how as if you haven't been in that shoe of being that high performance athlete, you have no idea what they're going through in those moments of adversity on the field, in addition to what's happening off the court and off the field and off the field of play. But I am
Mhm.
absolutely just like, I couldn't even imagine what it's like to be Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, LeBron James. Like, I love that they're so high profile and using their platforms, but I don't know what it's like to be number one in the world, all those
Yeah.
things. So I have
When
no
I
idea.
tell people all the time, like, I got a taste of that world, but I couldn't imagine what, I mean, I've met Kobe a few times. His
Nice.
daughter, his older daughter, not the one who passed with him, his older daughter played volleyball in the same volleyball league as my daughter
Oh,
and
okay.
my girlfriend's daughter and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, so I've met him several times and we talked about it. And, other dads want to talk to you guys. But once they see that, so, you're in the sports, it's the law of averages that you're going to run into kids.
Right.
Your parents were professional athletes.
Absolutely.
So, and they want to talk to you and everything, but you understand, like, most people are very respectful about it. But I've also gone to games where I'm watching the game and people are screaming and yelling at me I'm personally responsible for what the Raiders are doing on the field right now. I'm like, dude, I'm a fan like you. I'm not in the locker room with these guys.
Right. That's
It's
the one
crazy.
good thing about being on the field. At least you can't hear most of what they're saying. I was at NBA Summer League a couple weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, and it was like there was a big arena where you couldn't really
Mm-hmm.
hear what people thought about your performance, other than the. It is amazing hearing the collective. Oh, when somebody misses a shot or when something goes wrong on the court, and I'm like, I can only imagine what athletes hear in those moments. Because I mean, when I was running, it is excitement, and maybe when they're cheering for one person, but it's usually not a collective unless there's a big mistake, like you
Yeah.
fall or something like that. And but when we were in the small gym, you could hear everything, and people being like, "Put this person in, take them out. You're wasting your time," And so
Yeah.
very interesting to navigate all of that. So definitely, we are both fans of mental health. And so, what do you think is an athlete's mental advantage? What do you think is their mental advantage? If they want a mental edge, what's your advice to that person?
Is take what you learn about focusing because once the game starts, I don't hear the crowd and stuff. But you are so dialed in, it's
Yeah.
not even funny. So that advantage that you have is that somewhere along the line you've learned to go boom and be dialed in. Switch goes on, I'm focused. Same thing when you're with your kids or you hang out. Boom, you dialed in, be focused. It's not different, just the goal is different.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, it's time for the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Question number 1. What is your favorite snack or favorite snack? Yeah.
Favorite snack, I'd have to say, they're not healthy, but I like frozen grapes and Nutter Butters.
Frozen grapes are bad for you?
Well, there's a lot of sugar. There's a lot of sugar.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, what? It's a grape. It's nature's sugar. At least it's not white sugar, that or whatever, the processed sugar, let me say. All right. What is your favorite superpower that you would want and why?
I'd like to be Captain America, like just peak athletics. I would just like to be that kind of guy. Everyone wants to fly and be invisible. No, dude, I just want to be the most peak athletic person I can be. Run, fast, jump, and almost immortal about it. That's
you have literally been the only person that has ever said that. Everybody picks, you're right, flying and those other ones. So that's good. Yeah, Captain America, right? Because he was such a scrawny dude, and then all of a sudden he was like,
yep.
yes, absolutely. So I'm assuming Captain America is your favorite superhero, which would usually be my follow-up question.
No, actually, the Black Panther. I was a T'Challa fan back when I was a kid. So
really?
Yeah.
Obviously, identity, right? Representation.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was a kid, so I always was that person.
I don't want you to be upset with me, but I was raised in a predominantly white household. I did not know about the Black Panther until more recently. But absolutely love the representation and the things that you don't know. And I mean, kudos to whoever wrote it. I don't know if it was Stan Lee, but do you know if it was Stan Lee?
It was a combination of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Okay.
They were very socially conscious about the 60s and stuff. They were trying to be something like that. So they wanted to create a character about that. So they did.
Okay.
And they didn't want to be a stereotypical character that, like the gangster of the hood or this kind of character. So that's why they made him a leader of his own country.
That's amazing. All right. Well, okay, Stan, I see you. All right. So what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Banana ice cream. I love banana ice cream.
Banana ice cream.
It's hard to find in the stores. You usually have to go purchase it from some ice cream shop where they make ice cream for you, or order it online.
There's a new brand made of frozen bananas. Have you seen this? Yeah. Okay, all right, because I know that's at Whole Foods.
I have an ice cream maker at the house where you take frozen fruit and shove it in. It comes out, it's all natural. There's no dairy, no artificial sugars. So I do that.
Oh, nice. Okay, all right. This question I ask everybody just because I've always found it fascinating, but you may not have an opinion about it. Some people are very passionate about their toilet paper. They want to know if it's either over the top or under the bottom. How do you feel, and why do you feel the way you feel?
I want it under the bottom because when you pull it, it pulls and then it was over the top. You end up flipping it or you end up tearing it wrong. So I just for some reason I like it under the bottom. Plus I'm long armed, so when I reach, it's down there. It's supposed to pull my hand up.
Okay. All right. So we've got our first almost, I think, under the bottom. Okay. Now, question, because this is the psychological aspect of this survey. Do you change it at your house if it's put on incorrectly?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. If you come to my house, will you change it? If you come to my house, will you change it?
Yeah. No, because your house.
Because it's my house. Okay, most people feel that way. Most people do feel that way. They were not going to change it, but there's occasionally people that are very passionate and will change it in other people's bathrooms. Okay, who's your personal hero? You may have already referenced him. You talked about your dad, but is it your dad?
Yeah, it was my dad growing up. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tell people to this day, if I'm 10% the father he was, then I'm really great dad.
That's awesome. And what do you want to be remembered for, Johnathan?
If I could be remembered for anything, I think it would be just that, if you knew me as a coach or as your brother or your son or as a sibling or a cousin or as your father or just whatever, or a neighborhood, if you dated me, whatever, is that when things go down, I show up. You need help you move, something, I show up. Like if you had to speak to me or speak about me at my passing of life, or celebration of life, you would say, yeah, that guy was always there. He showed up. I didn't always like this or we argued about this, or we didn't end it, but he shows up and he's always there.
All right. Where can people connect with you?
You can always look me up on LinkedIn, Johnathan Flowers. You look me up on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Instagram as Coach Flowers. You can also find me on Twitter as Coach Flowers. So either way.
And obviously, as he mentioned, he does coaching on the side and mentoring. So if you are in connection with any of that, looking for coaching as well as looking for, any other mentoring opportunities or know of any, Johnathan will be interested, and we'll put that in the show notes, of course. And as well as, of course, check out his video. But he's far more dynamic in person. I mean, it's a wonderful video, but that was a moment in time that will be there for posterity's sake. But the awesome thing is getting the real in the flesh person. And I'm gifted that you are here today. And it makes me feel like there's so much more I want to talk about with you, with like recovery from injury, how to move on after loss and things like that. So I'd love to have you back on the podcast some other time.
Yeah, anytime. I'm really honored you having me here. I had a great time. Looking forward to talking to you in the future. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Johnathan. And that is a wrap.